Ip Man was a martial arts master whose claim to fame was teaching Bruce Lee how to fight. Before Bruce Lee became the star of kung fu cinema classics like Fists of Fury and Enter the Dragon, he trained under Ip Man, beginning with his first lesson in 1953. Throughout his life, Ip Man taught hundreds of students to perfect their martial arts techniques. Despite his successful career, his personal life wasn't always smooth sailing. While Ip Man's life has been dramatized in numerous films, what's the real story of the man who trained Bruce Lee? Stay with us as we delve into the life and poignant end of Ip Man. Born Ip Kaiman, he was the third of 4 children of Ip Oidor and Ing Shui. Growing up in an affluent family in Foshan, Guangdong, he received a traditional Chinese education alongside his siblings. Older brother Ip Kaigak, older sister Ip Wan Mei, and younger sister Ip Wan Hum. This privileged upbringing offered him opportunities many of his contemporaries could only dream of. For the Ip parents, instilling discipline and self-sufficiency through Wing Chun was paramount. After all, they were residents of southern China, living in the very region where this martial art had been developed over 300 years earlier. Ip Man began his martial arts journey at a young age, learning Wing Chun from Chan Shun when he was either 9 or 13 years old, accounts vary. Chan, who was 57 at the time, accepted Ip as his 16th and final student. However, Chan's advanced age and subsequent mild stroke in 1909 limited his ability to teach Ip for more than 3 years. Despite this setback, Ip Man's dedication to Wing Chun remained unwavering. He continued his training under Chan's senior student, Ing Chung Sok, from whom he learned most of his skills and techniques. At 16, Ip Man relocated to Hong Kong with the assistance of his relative, Leung Phut Ting. There, he attended St. Stephen's College, a prestigious secondary school for affluent families and expatriates. His stay in Hong Kong marked a significant phase in his martial arts development. 6 months after his arrival, a classmate named Lai introduced him to a kung fu expert staying with Lai's family. This expert turned out to be Leung Bick, son of the legendary Wing Chun master Leung January Ip Man. Confident in his abilities and undefeated at that point, enthusiastically accepted the challenge to match skills with Leung Bick. The encounter proved to be a humbling experience for Ip Man. He was swiftly and decisively defeated. Determined to understand and learn from his defeat, Ip Man requested a second match, only to be beaten just as easily. Discouraged by his defeat at Leung Bick's hands, Ip Man left without a word, feeling so dejected that he dared not mention his kung fu training to anyone. A week later, his classmate Lai informed him that Leung Bick had asked about him. Embarrassed, Ip was reluctant to return, but Lai relayed that Leung Bick had highly praised Ip's techniques and revealed that he was the son of Leung Jan, who had trained Ip's master, Chan Shun. This revelation rekindled Ip's passion, and he continued training under Leung Bick until Leung's death in 1911. In 1916, at the age of 24, Ip Man returned to Foshan and took a position as a police officer under the nationalist government. Although he didn't establish a formal martial arts school, he taught Wing Chun to several subordinates, friends, and family members. Among his notable students were Lok Yu, Chao Kuangyue, Kwok Fu, Luan Kai, Chan Chi Sun, and Louis Ing. Chao Kuangyue, considered the most talented, eventually abandoned martial arts for a career in commerce. Kwok Fu and Luan Kai, however, continued teaching and spreading Wing Chun throughout the Foshan and Guangdong regions. Chan Chi Sun and Louis Ing settled in Hong Kong, but neither took on students. Ip Man married Chung Wing Sing, and they had several children, sons Ip Chun and Ip Ching, and daughters Ip Nasum and Ip Nawoon. His family life was characterized by traditional values and commitment to their welfare. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, Ip Man sided with the Kuomintang. His exact activities during the war remain somewhat obscure. It's said that he joined the Central Statistics and Investigation Bureau at their academy in Guizhou in 1938, then returned to Foshan as an undercover intelligence officer, though this account has been contested. It's believed that during the war, Ip lived with Kwok Fu and only returned to Foshan after the conflict ended. After the war, Ip Man resumed his duties as captain of the Foshan police patrols. In 1949, amid the upheaval of the Chinese Civil War and the Chinese Communist Party's victory, Ip Man, as a Kuomintang member, decided to leave Foshan. He, his wife, and their eldest daughter, Ip Nasum, moved to Hong Kong. #The Grandmaster's Rise in Hong Kong. Ip Man's hasty flight to British Hong Kong meant leaving his family and possessions behind in Foshan. Any gold he had on him was quickly spent or swindled away en route. After relocating to Hong Kong, the 56-year-old Ip Man faced significant challenges, including unemployment. His previous experience as a police officer in Foshan didn't translate into a viable career in Hong Kong, either due to his inability or unwillingness to join the Hong Kong police. Initially, IP struggled to find work, but eventually, friends helped him secure employment at a restaurant. This position allowed him to forge new connections through the Hong Kong Restaurant Workers Association, which had a martial arts club led by Shun-leung. Despite his skills, Ip Man initially didn't want others to know he was a martial artist. Ip Man also struggled with an opium addiction, which he had contracted earlier in his life. In Hong Kong, opium was expensive and only available on the black market, necessitating a regular income for IP to support both his habit and his family in Foshan. This financial pressure added another layer of difficulty to his already challenging situation. Ip Man began teaching Wing Chun in the early 1950s, partly to escape poverty and allegedly to support his opium dependency. His first students were primarily poor, uneducated members of the Restaurant Workers Association and restless, angry young men, drawn by IP Man's charismatic personality and the desire to strengthen themselves in the rough environment of 1950s Hong Kong. Initially, his teaching business struggled, as his students typically stayed for only a few months. Consequently, Ip Man had to relocate his school twice, first to Castle Peak Road in Sham Shui Pa, then to Lee Tat Street in Yau Ma Ti. Over time, some of these students became proficient in Wing Chun and opened their own schools. Their victories in fights with other martial artists helped increase IP Man's fame and attract more students. Housed at the Restaurant Workers Union Hall, Ip Man was deeply grateful. According to legend, however, he couldn't help but laugh when the kung fu master, Leung Shung, taught kung fu to his students. Enraged by the disrespect, the master ordered Ip Man to fight, which the seemingly homeless old stranger easily won. "All you do is have your students hit the air," Ip Man reportedly said. "But air doesn't hit back. What happens when you face an enemy who will? If you practice kung fu, you should do it seriously or not at all." After throwing Shung, who weighed 200 pounds, across the room, Ip Man had turned the tables. It was that day in 1952 that officially made him the leader of this nascent martial arts school and made Shung himself a disciple. According to another of his early students, William Chung, Ip Man was a kind teacher. "Ip Man had a very good sense of humor," Chung said. "He loved giving nicknames to his students, and it took him a long time to figure them out. Like Wong Shun-leung was called Wong Ching-leung, which means he's like a bull. I was called Big, Sturdy Boy, and Bruce was nicknamed Upstart." Ip Man was eventually asked to leave the Union Hall because his classes had grown too large and benefited too many non-union members. Meeting Bruce Lee and later years. He opened his own school in Kowloon, Hong Kong, where he met Bruce Lee in 1956. The 16-year-old had just lost a fight against rival gang members and was eager to hone his skills. Around 1955, Ip Man had a mistress from Shanghai known to his students as Shanghai Pa. IP and Shanghai Pa had an illegitimate son named IP Shuhua. Meanwhile, in Foshan, IP's wife, Chung Wing-sing, died of cancer in 1960. Despite his relationship with Shanghai Pa, IP never formally introduced her to his other sons, who eventually joined him in Hong Kong in 1962. By the 1960s, IP Man's fame had significantly increased within the Hong Kong martial arts community. This new level of recognition allowed him to attract wealthier and better educated students. In 1967, Ip Man and some of his students founded the Wing Chun Athletic Association. The primary purpose of this association was to help Ip Man resolve his financial difficulties, partly due to his regular opium consumption. One of his former students, Leung Shung, claimed that IP used tuition money to support his addiction. Despite his personal challenges, IP Man's contributions to Wing Chun were profound. His teaching not only helped popularize the martial art in Hong Kong, but also laid the groundwork for its global spread. Notably, his most famous student, Bruce Lee, contributed to making Wing Chun internationally known. IP's mistress died of cancer in 1968, and their son, IP Shuhua, later became a Wing Chun practitioner like his half-brothers. The man who trained Bruce Lee. Ip Man and Bruce Lee shared a mutual fondness for practical jokes, often using their wit and sense of humor to maintain a light atmosphere. They would sometimes fight with their fists covered in itching powder or use hand buzzers on unsuspecting students. Beyond their humor, their bond was solidified by their dedication to Wing Chun. Bruce Lee, who initially showed only moderate skill, became Ipman's most accomplished student under his meticulous guidance. Reflecting on his lessons in 1961, Lee fondly remembered, "My instructor, Professor Ipman, head of the Wing Chun school, would come up to me and say, 'Relax and calm your mind. Forget about yourself and follow your opponent's movement. Let your mind, the basic reality, do the counter-movement without any interfering deliberation. Above all, learn the art of detachment.'" Personal tragedies and family life. While Ipman's professional life flourished, his personal life was marked by tragedy. Ipman met Chung Wing-sing in Foshan, China, where they both grew up. They married and started a family, welcoming 2 sons, Ip Chun and Ip Ching, and 2 daughters, Ip Nasum and Ip Nawoon. Their life in Foshan was comfortable and stable, supported by Ipman's wealth and properties. However, their peaceful life was shattered in 1937 when Japan invaded China, forcing Ipman to join the military. For the next 4 years, he was separated from his family, which took a significant toll on them. Chung Wing-sing fell ill during his absence, and without Ipman to manage their affairs, the family farm suffered greatly. The war depleted their resources, and Ipman, who had grown up in wealth, found himself facing poverty. In 1949, the Communist Party emerged victorious from the Chinese Civil War, creating a precarious situation for Ipman and his family due to his association with the nationalist government. Aware of the danger, Ipman decided to flee to Hong Kong, taking only his most precious possessions. He left his wife and daughters in Foshan, while his sons, now adults, also initially stayed behind. This separation marked a painful chapter in his life, as he would never reunite with his wife. Ipman's new romantic relationship. It was a difficult period for the martial arts master. Ipman reportedly became so depressed about his decline in life that he was briefly homeless. A few compassionate individuals saw him wandering aimlessly and helped him find employment at the Restaurant Workers' Union Hall. Shortly after, he resumed teaching his popular Wing Chun classes. From Ipman's separation from his wife in 1951, they never saw each other again. She and one of their daughters remained in Foshan, while he stayed in Hong Kong. Tragically, Chung Wing-sing died of cancer in 1960, marking a painful end to their separation. Despite this grief, Ipman found love again. In 1954, he remarried a woman who was about 16 years younger than him. Around the same time, Ipman allegedly had a mistress known as Shanghai Po, due to her origins. Beginning their relationship around 1955, Ipman and Shanghai Po had a child together named Ip Shua. Ipman's dedication to his family was evident as he managed to reunite with some of his loved ones. He successfully brought his 2 sons, Ip Chun and Ip Ching, from China to Hong Kong, allowing them to train under his tutelage. Ip Shua also joined his half-brothers in learning martial arts from their father. This reunion marked an important chapter in Ipman's life, as he spent his final decades teaching Wing Chun with his family by his side. Final years and legacy. However, his second wife died of cancer in 1968. Struggling with a growing opium addiction, Ipman eventually faced eviction from his home turn school. Despite his personal trials, Ipman's association with Bruce Lee brought him increased fame and a larger clientele. This led to the creation of the Wing Chun Athletic Association Gymnasium in 1967, further cementing his legacy. However, Ipman's life was cut short when he succumbed to throat cancer on December 2, 1972, just 7 months before Bruce Lee's premature death from a fatal reaction to medication. Media representation. In the 1976 film, Bruce Lee, the man, the myth, Ipman's eldest son, Ip Chun, portrayed his father in a small role as Bruce Lee's Wing Chun master. Ipman was portrayed by Wong Lo-yong in the 1993 American biographical drama Dragon, The Bruce Lee Story, which is based on the life of Bruce Lee, one of Ip's most famous students. In the 1999 film What You Gonna Do, Sai-fung, Ipman was again portrayed by his son, Ip Chun, in a special appearance. Yu Chung-hui played Ipman in the 2008 Chinese television series The Legend of Bruce Lee, which also traces the life of Bruce Lee. The 2008 Hong Kong film Ipman, starring Donnie Yen as the martial artist, takes some creative liberties with Ip's life for dramatic effect. IP's eldest son, IP Chun, appears in the film and was a consultant during production. The film focuses on IP's life in the 1930s and 1940s, particularly during the Second Sino-Japanese War. The sequel, Ipman 2, focuses on IP's early years in Hong Kong and his students, including Bruce Lee. Amid a wave of IP man-related film projects, Donnie Yen announced in March 2010 that Ipman 2 would be his last film portraying the Wing Chun master. He expressed concerns about oversaturation of the subject, stating, "I will never touch any films related to IP Man. This will be my final film on the subject." Whenever a success comes, everyone jumps on the bandwagon, which is very frightening. Do you know how many Ip Man films are in production? Under such conditions, we wouldn't progress. It would only lead to oversaturation of the subject. Another Hong Kong film about IP Man's life, The Legend is Born, Ip Man, was released in June 2010. Directed by Herman Yao, the film stars Dennis Tu as Ip Man and 17 band member Wen Junhui as his younger self. IP Chun makes a special appearance in the film as Leung Bick. In the 2010 film, Bruce Lee, My Brother, Ip Man was portrayed by Wong Chi-wai. Wong Kar-wais, The Grandmaster, starring Tony Leung as Ip Man, focuses on the end of an era in Chinese martial arts history as the Second Sino-Japanese War breaks out. The film adopts an almost biographical style, highlighting significant historical events. Unlike other IP man-related projects, The Grandmaster is more contemplative, exploring martial arts and life philosophies, and tracing IP Man's journey from the early 1930s to the early 1950s. The 2013 Chinese television series, Ip Man, based on his life, aired on Shandong TV from late February to mid-March 2013. Directed by Fan Xiaotian, it starred Kevin Cheng as Ip Man and Zhou Jianan as his younger counterpart. The 2013 Hong Kong film, Ip Man, The Final Fight, directed by Herman Yao and starring Anthony Wong as Ip Man, focuses on his later life in Hong Kong. Kevin Chung made an appearance as young Ip Man, and IP Chun had a cameo. This film emphasizes the loyalty of IP Man students to their master. Despite Donnie Yen's March 2010 statement that he would no longer participate in Ip Man films, Ip Man 3 was released on December 24, 2015, with Yen reprising his role as IP Man. In the 2018 action-comedy film Kung Fu League, Dennis Tu returned as Ip Man, alongside 3 other martial artists, Wang Fei-hung, Hua Yuanjia, and Chen Zhen, who travel through time to teach martial arts to a modern comic book artist caught in a love triangle. Later in the film, he reveals that he's actually an imposter named IP Bitman. In the 2019 film Ip Man and the Four Kings, Michael Tong portrayed IP Man. In this film, Ip Man must defeat the Four Kings before confronting a human trafficking ring and avenging the death of one of his students. In the 2019 film Ip Man, Kung Fu Master, Dennis Tu reprised his role as Ip Man, set during the time when he was a police officer in Guangzhou, before the start of the Chinese Communist Revolution in 1949. Donnie Yen reprised his role as Ip Man for the final time in Ip Man 4, which focuses on IP Man's visit to San Francisco to find a school for his son, while battling cancer. The film was released on December 20, 2019. The 2022 film Ip Man, The Awakening, features a young Ip Man, portrayed by Myo Tse, visiting Hong Kong and becoming involved in stopping a human trafficking ring. IP Man's legacy in the martial arts world is profound. His teachings not only transformed Bruce Lee into a global icon, but also ensured the spread and enduring popularity of Wing Chun. The story of IP Man's life is a testament to resilience, dedication, and the profound impact a teacher can have on his students and the world at large. Now it's your turn. Did you know about IP Man's early struggles and his journey to becoming a renowned Wing Chun master? Before his death, Ip Man finally admitted why he stopped teaching Bruce Lee, a truth far more complex than Hollywood has ever depicted. For years, the world has celebrated the legendary bond between these martial arts icons, with films portraying a young Bruce Lee training in a secret temple under the guidance of an enlightened master. Yet, the reality involved deep cultural tensions, fierce rivalries, and the harsh conditions of 1950s Hong Kong that eventually created a rift between them. In this exploration, we demystify the legends to reveal how ancient prejudices, jealous peers, and the pressure to preserve Wing Chun pushed Ip Man to make this difficult decision. Join us to discover the little-known story behind this pivotal moment. And ask yourself, what might have happened if Bruce had completed his traditional training? How different would martial arts history be? Bruce Lee first encountered Ip Man in the early 1950s when he was about 15 years old. At that time, Bruce wasn't yet the disciplined martial arts practitioner the world would later come to know. He was simply a teenager immersed in the tumultuous street life of Hong Kong, where gang fights and urban violence were part of his daily reality. Leading a gang nicknamed the Eight Tigers of Junction Street, Bruce had earned a reputation as a competent street fighter, though his techniques were still raw and unrefined. This rough environment pushed him to seek ways to improve his fighting abilities, and this quest led him toward Kung Fu. His first approach to Kung Fu wasn't through formal training but rather by observing others fight and experimenting with techniques on his own. One of his closest friends, William Chung, was already learning Wing Chun from the famous Grandmaster Ipman. Recognizing Bruce's fighting spirit and natural talent, Chung offered to introduce him to his teacher, an encounter that would change Bruce Lee's life. There was, however, an initial complication. Bruce's mother having European ancestry, some viewed him as a foreigner. In the traditional Chinese martial arts world of that era, there existed a long-standing rule prohibiting the teaching of non-Chinese students. Several of Ipman's senior students opposed Bruce's admission to the school. William Chung, convinced of Bruce's potential, vouched for him. Thanks to this intervention, Bruce was finally accepted into Ipman's Wing Chun school. However, Bruce's training didn't begin as he had imagined. Rather than immediately learning complex movements or fighting techniques, he was tasked with practicing a single stance for several days. This was particularly frustrating for Bruce, who hoped to quickly acquire techniques applicable to street fighting. He complained to his father about this seemingly useless exercise, but nothing changed. Despite his frustration, he continued to show up for class and tirelessly repeat this stance. Ipman's approach was deliberate. His philosophy emphasized the importance of building a solid foundation before moving on to more elaborate techniques. By forcing Bruce to focus solely on perfecting this stance, Ip Man was instilling precision, balance, and structure that would become essential to his future mastery of martial arts. At the time, Bruce found this training tedious, but in retrospect, it laid the groundwork for his later innovations. Ip Man himself rarely taught all his students directly. He reserved personal instruction for those he deemed particularly promising or dedicated. In Bruce's case, much of the daily teaching was provided by Shun-leung, one of Ipman's most reliable senior students. Wang was known for his pragmatic approach to Wing Chun, shaped by his own experiences in real fights. Under his guidance, Bruce's skills improved rapidly. Wang's emphasis on efficiency and adaptability in real combat resonated with Bruce's experience in street fighting. As he progressed, Ip Man began to take a personal interest in his development. The Grandmaster recognized Bruce's talent and enthusiasm for learning. Beyond physical techniques, Ip Man introduced him to the deeper philosophy of Kung Fu, the importance of fluidity, adaptability, and understanding one's opponent. This philosophical foundation would later influence many of Bruce's famous ideas, including his well-known maxim, "Be like water." The period during which Bruce trained under Ip Man and Shun-leung ran parallel to his studies at St. Francis Xavier's College, where he was mentored by Brother Edward, who also trained the school's boxing team. This period was crucial in shaping his overall vision of combat. While Wing Chun offered him a structured martial arts system, his experiences in boxing allowed him to discover Western punching techniques and movements. This blend of influences planted the seeds for Bruce's later development of his own martial philosophy, Jeet Kune Do. The years spent under Ipman's tutelage were transformative. Bruce arrived at the school as a raw, self-taught street fighter whose techniques relied on instinct and aggression. Through Ipman's patient and structured training, this aggression was refined into control, precision, and efficiency. This transformation was as much mental as it was physical. Bruce began to perceive fighting not only as a physical conflict but as a dynamic interaction requiring both technique and adaptability. The environment in Ipman's school was demanding not only because of the training methods but also due to internal conflicts among students. Bruce's natural ability allowed him to quickly surpass many of his peers, intensifying their resentment. The jealousy ran deep, and his mixed heritage further fueled the discontent. Many traditionalists within the school believed that Chinese martial arts should be reserved exclusively for people of pure Chinese ancestry. This prejudice offered a convenient justification for his detractors, and despite Ipman's personal acceptance of Bruce's talent, the growing opposition within the school could not be ignored. As Bruce's skills improved under the guidance of Ip Man and his senior student Shun-leung, the external pressure on the Grandmaster increased. In Hong Kong's conservative martial arts community, traditions were fiercely defended. The idea of teaching Chinese martial arts to someone of mixed heritage was controversial. Moreover, Bruce's reputation as a street fighter, honed in the violent alleys of Hong Kong and reinforced by his successes in unofficial fights, exacerbated the situation. His rebellious nature and rapid rise in martial arts made him a lightning rod for criticism. Fellow students and established practitioners all saw him as a threat to Wing Chun's deeply entrenched customs and hierarchies. By the late 1950s, several factors converged to create an untenable situation for Ipman. His own health was deteriorating, years of opium use had taken their toll, and he was suffering from throat cancer. Teaching was becoming increasingly difficult for the aging Grandmaster who had spent decades perfecting the art of Wing Chun. Simultaneously, pressure from the traditional martial arts community was mounting. Critics argued that Ip Man was compromising the integrity of his teachings by associating with a student who didn't meet the community's standards. As one senior member of the school allegedly stated, "Teaching Bruce is like opening the door to everyone who is not meant for our art." Although Ip Man never publicly endorsed such sentiments, this feeling was pervasive. Faced with these growing challenges, Ip Man made a difficult decision. Rather than completely excluding Bruce, a measure that might have further tarnished his reputation, Ip Man chose to distance himself by ceasing to offer direct instruction. He arranged for Bruce to continue his training exclusively under Shun-leung. This decision made Bruce an outcast within the main school, confining him to a separate training environment. This compromise allowed Ip Man to protect both his personal legacy and the sanctity of his martial tradition. In doing so, he ensured that controversies surrounding Bruce's presence wouldn't compromise the overall reputation of his Wing Chun lineage. For decades, the true reasons behind Ip Man's decision to stop teaching Bruce remained a matter of speculation. Many assumed that Bruce's arrogance and rebellious behavior were the primary causes. However, the complete story was far more complex and, in many ways, tragic. Shortly before his death in 1972, Ip Man revealed the truth. "The mounting pressure from the traditional martial arts community, coupled with my declining health, left me no choice but to withdraw from Bruce's direct training." These words clarified that it wasn't solely Bruce's behavior that motivated this decision, but rather a combination of external pressures and personal limitations. Deeply ingrained prejudices against Bruce's mixed heritage also played a role, as many conservative students believed Chinese martial arts shouldn't be shared with people of non-Chinese origin. After this period, Bruce's life took another dramatic turn. In 1959, following a series of violent incidents, including a particularly serious altercation involving the son of a powerful triad member, his parents decided that his safety in Hong Kong could no longer be guaranteed. They sent him to the United States, where he would start anew in Seattle. Arriving with few resources, only $100 and a few contacts, Bruce was forced to reinvent himself. In the United States, he began by taking small jobs and pursuing philosophy studies at the University of Washington. Simultaneously, he built a reputation as a formidable fighter, participating in boxing matches and underground martial arts competitions. The break with Ip Man's formal training didn't end Bruce's commitment to martial arts, it merely redirected his trajectory. In Seattle, Bruce eventually opened his own school, the Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute. This institution broke with tradition in many ways. Unlike the exclusive, racially homogeneous martial arts schools of Hong Kong, Bruce's school welcomed students of all backgrounds. His inclusive approach was seen as a direct challenge to the established order and further fueled controversy around his methods. By redefining his art as Jeet Kune Do, or the way of the intercepting fist, Bruce sought to eliminate what he considered superfluous traditions to create a system based solely on efficiency and practicality in real combat. Ip Man's distancing himself from Bruce wasn't intended to punish him but to protect the reputation of his martial arts school. The relentless pressure from traditionalists, combined with his deteriorating health, made it impossible for him to continue providing direct teaching without risking diluting his art. So, who exactly was Ip Man, to have exerted such a profound influence on Bruce Lee? Born in 1893 in Foshan, Guangdong, Ip Man, originally Ip Kaiman, grew up in a wealthy family that valued education and traditional Chinese culture. Third of 4 siblings, he was introduced to martial arts discipline from an early age. He began studying Wing Chun under Shun, a respected master of this art. Some sources claim Ipman started his training at age 9, while others suggest he began at 13. Either way, his determination to master Wing Chun was evident from the beginning. Shun, then 57 years old, took IP as his 16th student. However, his teaching was interrupted after only 3 years when a mild stroke in 1909 forced him to retire. During his formative years, Ipman absorbed much of his training from Chan's second most experienced student, Ing Chung-sok, laying the essential foundations for his future expertise. In his 20s, Ipman had already reached a level of proficiency that allowed him to teach others, though he hadn't yet created an official school. He worked as a police officer in Foshan for the nationalist government, a position that provided both a stable income and an opportunity to apply his martial skills in maintaining public order. His reputation as a skilled and disciplined practitioner steadily grew, even as his career as a martial artist was just beginning to take shape. At 16, aided by his relative Leung Fut-ting, Ipman moved to Hong Kong. There, he enrolled at St. Stephen's College, an institution for wealthy families and expatriates. This experience broadened his horizons and exposed him to new ideas, well beyond his native Foshan. Shortly after his arrival, a classmate named Lai informed him of an exhibition challenge organized by a friend of Lai's father. The challenge came from Leung Bik, the son of Leung Jan, who had been Shun's teacher. Ipman enthusiastically accepted the duel. However, Leung Bik's speed and skill quickly outmatched him. After 2 fights in which IP was defeated, he felt embarrassed and discouraged, initially leaving without comment. A week later, Lai explained that Leung Bik had actually praised Ipman's technique and highlighted his familial connection to Leung January. This feedback motivated Ipman, who began training under Leung Bik until the latter's death in 1911. These years of rigorous training were essential in refining his skills and deepening his understanding of Wing Chun. In 1916, at the age of 24, Ipman returned to Foshan and resumed his career as a police officer. During this period, he began teaching Wing Chun to his friends, subordinates, and family members. Although he never established an official martial arts school in Foshan, his classes enjoyed an excellent reputation. These early students, including Lok Yu, Chao Kuangyue, Kwok Fu, Luan Kai, Chan Chi-sun, and Louis Ing, later contributed to spreading Wing Chun in Foshan and throughout the Guangdong region. Some even emigrated to Hong Kong, though not all pursued teaching careers. Ipman married Chung Wing Sing, and together they had several children, including IP Chun and IP Ching. However, his personal life was not without difficulties. The tumultuous political climate of early 20th century China began to affect him. During the Sino-Japanese War, Ipman sided with the Kuomintang. Rumors circulate that he joined the Central Bureau of Investigation and Statistics in Guizhou in 1938, then returned to Foshan as an undercover intelligence agent, though details remain controversial. What is certain is that he spent some time with his student, Kwok Fu, during the conflict, before returning to Foshan when hostilities ended. After the war, Ipman served for several years as captain of the Foshan police patrols, and in 1949, he even trained his second son, IP Ching, demonstrating his commitment to passing on Wing Chun. However, with the Chinese Communist Party's victory in the Civil War in late 1949, the political situation changed dramatically. Due to his ties with the Kuomintang, Ipman, his wife, and their eldest daughter left Foshan for Hong Kong via Macau in 1950. This was a major turning point in his life. In Hong Kong, Ipman's experience was radically different from the relative stability he knew in Foshan. At 56, he struggled to find work, his experience as a police officer not easily transferring to this new environment. With friends' help, he secured a job at a restaurant and forged connections through the Hong Kong Restaurant Workers Association. During this period, Ipman developed an opium addiction, which exacerbated his financial difficulties. To support both his addiction and his family's needs, he began teaching Wing Chun more openly in the early 1950s. His first students were primarily destitute members of the Restaurant Workers Association and troubled young men from the streets, people he hoped to divert from gang violence. Although many stayed only briefly, some eventually acquired enough skill to open their own schools, thus contributing to the spread of Wing Chun in Hong Kong. In the mid-1950s, Ipman's personal life became further complicated when he began an extramarital affair with a woman known simply as Shanghai Po. This relationship resulted in a son, IP Shuhua. In 1960, his wife Chung died of cancer, and subsequently, his sons joined him in Hong Kong. Throughout the 1960s, Ipman's reputation improved, attracting wealthier and better educated students. In 1967, he and several of his students created the Wing Chun Athletic Association to help alleviate his financial difficulties, a measure that former student Duncan Leung later summarized by stating, "IP used tuition money to support his opium addiction." Ipman's influence extended far beyond his personal struggles. Among his notable students were Chu Shong-tin, Lok Yu, Wang Shun-leung, and Bruce Lee. The latter, in particular, credited Ipman with teaching him the art of detachment and instilling a deep understanding of Kung Fu. Bruce's famous maxim, "Be like water," reflects the fundamental principles of simplicity, directness, and adaptability he had learned from Ipman. Ipman died on December 2, 1972, in his residence at 149 Tung Choi Street in Hong Kong, succumbing to throat cancer just 7 months before Bruce Lee. He was buried in Wahap Shek in Hong Kong. Today, the Ipman Museum, located on the grounds of the Foshan Ancestral Temple, preserves many artifacts from his life, and his legacy continues to inspire martial artists worldwide. Ipman's journey, from his beginnings in Foshan, through his later struggles and ultimate success in Hong Kong, testifies to the enduring power of disciplined martial training and the profound influence a dedicated teacher can have on future generations. Before his death, Ipman finally revealed why he had stopped teaching Bruce Lee. During a final emotional meeting in Hong Kong, a weakened Ipman, sketching a slight smile, answered Bruce's sincere question, "Do you still consider me your student?" This moment encapsulated the profound bond between the master and his student, a bond shaped by tradition, personal trials, and the necessity of preserving Wing Chun's integrity. Although his decision to distance himself wasn't a rejection but a difficult choice dictated by immense pressure and health issues, it leads us to wonder, if Bruce had completed his traditional training, would he have revolutionized martial arts in the same way? Share your thoughts below, and join us as we continue to explore the legends behind these iconic figures.